So I want to make a video today about leather making. And I've noticed that in the primitive skills world and on Instagram, a lot of people are making buckskins, but there's not a whole lot of information about, or not nearly as much information about, other kinds of natural leather making. So I want to show you a different technique that I learned in the Appalachian Mountains in North America, where I grew up. And this is I've already done some parts of the process before I decided to make a video specifically. I already skinned the deer, I already scraped and dried the hide, and I already soaked the hide in a bath of lye, which helps to make the hair easier to take out, and the adipose tissue, the fat that's on the underside of the hide, easier to take off as well. So I'll be starting from that point and going forward. Here I am removing the hair from the hide using a blunt draw knife. I'm not shaving it off, it's just slipping right out with a little bit of force. Next, I just wash it in some water to get the extra hairs off and to remove the saponified fat that is in and on the skin. After it's been washed, I put it in this mixture, the tanning solution, which in this case consists of a decoction of walnut hulls and oak bark and a few maple leaves. The oak bark and the walnut hulls change the texture of the leather, and the maple leaves they act as a humectant. They help it to retain some moisture so that it's more supple. And this is just out of the tanning solution after a little more than 24 hours. And I have it stretched out on a table, a board. Some people like to stretch it on an open frame. In this case, am not doing that. I'm stretching it on a flat board, which makes it dry a little more slowly. So this is the skin after a day of curing in the sun. And you can see it's turned a much darker color in most places. There's still some places that have some reddish color to them, and there will be some more variation in color that happens as the hide gets worked. The next step that I'm going to do is two things. I'm going to trim the edges of the hide because this gets really dry and really stiff and becomes very nearly impossible to work. So I'm going to set that aside for possible use in a different project. I'm going to trim all this stuff on the very edges off, and then I'm going to begin working fat into the hide. So this is the skin after it's been dried, and it's very hard and firm. And then this is tallow, which is simply the melted fat from the deer. And I'm going to just rub that on and work it in until it becomes softer. And in the process of working it in, I'm also going to be folding and unfolding the hide. And you can see that the color changes some as it sort of breaks there. We call it breaking, but it's not going to break all the way through. It's just going to get softened up. And it's the same process as you've probably noticed that a brand new dollar bill is nice and crispy and stiff, and that one that's been used and wadded up and folded up over and over again is very soft and limp. So we're going to do that exact same thing to the hide on purpose. So I'm cutting a nice chunk out of this tallow, and you can see that there's a top layer to the tallow, and then there's the middle layer, and there might be some liquid at the bottom. These are all fat, and they will all melt into the hide the same, but they separate out a little bit in the process of drying. So I don't really have a specific amount of tallow that I'm going to use. I'm just going to use a generous quantity of it and slather it right on the skin and work it in until there's no visible sign of the tallow anymore. And along with doing that, I'm also going to be working the hide back and forth. Here's the tallow rubbed clear to the edges of this one side, and because it is a warm day and we're out in the sun, this tallow is going to start to melt. It's kind of liquid at slightly above room temperature, even though it's solid at room temperature. So for this, I'm just rolling it up and folding it and creasing it as I go, and unrolling it and folding it up in a different direction in order to create some creases in it and start the process of breaking the hide. And at first, it's very hard to work the hide at all, and the more you work it, the easier it gets. So eventually it will get easy enough to where it can be wadded and unwadded like a sheet of paper, but I'm not there yet. Rolling it up and flattening it out, and then rolling and flattening it. And some people have a better setup than this, where they've got maybe a bench for dragging it back and forth across and things like that. I don't have a lot of tools for this because I'm not really a leather maker. It's not the main thing that I do. It's just something that I know how to do and occasionally do as a cultural practice and a way to use the skin from the animals that I hunt for food. So I don't have a lot of tools for it or anything, but fortunately, people have been doing this process since before there really were a lot of tools. So whatever you have, you can start with that. This is after 15 minutes of working, after about 30 minutes of working, and after about 45 minutes of being worked. Now that I've softened it up quite a bit, I'm going to use this jawbone to make some creases in it. I'm just going to fold it and then rub it flat with the flat, smooth side of this jawbone. And then fold it over so that it will be a similar length between the two creases, and then keep doing that the whole length of the thing. And then I'm going to unroll it and fold from the other direction and make creases from that direction as well. And this is going to soften it up some also, but it's also partly just for looks. So here is the textile in its final form. It could be worked longer and made softer, but in this case it's supple, it's smooth, it's still got the grain on it, so it's shiny, and it's a texture that would not work so well for a garment against the skin, but would be fine for a jacket or something like that. I hope you've enjoyed this video on primitive leather making. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and if you like this kind of content, follow for more of it.